Good evening, everyone. Funny story for you from a few years back. We were, as a church, doing a booth at our local festival here, Soul and Home Days. And our booth was kind of interesting at the time because what we did was we wanted to bless young parents and families in our community. And if you've ever been at a community festival and needed to change a diaper, let me tell you, it's not an easy thing to come by. And so what we were doing was we had set up our booth with a diaper changing station there. It had some privacy and it had all the supplies that they needed, and it had a clean place to change a diaper should that time be needed. And so I was at the festival and we had little note cards to let people know where our booth was. And so I was walking around at the festival and I was looking for folks that were pushing strollers or that had young children with them that might need a diaper change during the time that they were there. And I saw this grandfather that was pushing a stroller, and he had an infant with him who obviously was going to need, was still wearing diapers. And so I approached him and I went to hand him one of the flyers, and I just said, "Sir, I wonder if I could give you this." And he said, "No, I don't want anything to do with you." Even before I could get the words out about what it was, he cut me off and he said, "I don't want anything to do with you." And I tried to explain, well, sir, I'm just trying to tell you that I've got our church has a diaper changing station here for you if you should need it. And he kind of stopped and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, well, I saw your shirt." And that's when I realized I was wearing a shirt that I had at the time. And on the front of the shirt, it said one word. It said non-conformist. And so he thought that I was some kind of political anarchist out to entice him into some crazy mixed up way of life that I didn't want, that he'd have wanted nothing to do with. Well, on the back of that shirt was a verse from Romans 12:2, and I tried to explain to him a little bit about that, and I finally, he did take one of the changing things. I don't think I ever won this guy over, but the verse that Paul has to the Romans says in Romans 12:2, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds." And that's all it said on the back of my shirt. The verse goes on to say, "So that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect." Well, I was thinking about this again today because as this time of distancing continues for us, and even more so maybe as the restrictions start to slowly peel back, it's going to be tempting for us to rush ahead and to do whatever we please. You see, that's exactly what Paul was warning the Romans about. He wasn't urging them to go out and become political anarchists that pay no attention to the rules. Quite the contrary. He was urging them to think about their actions and to resist the worldly temptation, the earthly temptation, the temptation that we all feel from time to time to just run about and do as we please. He was urging them to think about how their actions impact those around them. And I think so much as we approach this time when some of those regulations are going to start to peel back, it's really important that we as Christians stand up and act responsibly, lovingly, thoughtfully, and honorably, so that our lives are not caught up in the ways of the world, but they're caught up in the ways of Christ. That we would be renewed in the ways of Christ, ways of grace, ways of mercy, ways of love, ways of sacrificial love, ways of peace and hope. This is our way of life. This is how our minds are called to work. We are called to be non-conformists, but not to the government or to the rules, but to the ways of sin that are so prevalent in our world. May we be renewed by the mind of Christ, and may we live by his story. Have a great night, and I'll see you tomorrow.